The girl the village feared. In a fearful, isolated village, Elira, a girl shunned and mistrusted by everyone, finds solace in wandering the forbidden forest. Drawn by curiosity rather than fear, she ventures into a mysterious castle said to be home to Dracula, a powerful and immortal being feared as a monster. Instead of terror, Elira discovers a complex, restrained and deeply lonely figure. Their encounters grow into a charged connection built on mutual recognition. Both are outsiders, misunderstood and judged. As their bond deepens, tension rises between Dracula's dangerous nature and his effort to protect her from it. One stormy night, their relationship reaches a turning point where trust overcomes fear and restraint gives way to a profound emotional connection. Elira ultimately chooses to stay, not as a victim, but as an equal, transforming a tale of fear into one of acceptance, power, and unexpected love between two beings the world had cast aside. The girl the village feared. The village of Durenhold lay pressed between a black forest and a mountain that seemed to swallow light. The people there spoke in hushed tones, as though the wind itself might betray them. They feared many things: storms, sickness, the long winters. But above all, they feared him, and they feared her. Her name was Elira. No one remembered when the whispers began, only that they never stopped. Children were pulled away when she walked past, doors shut a little too quickly, offerings left at shrines were quietly moved if she had touched them. She brings ill luck, they said. She walks alone too easily. She looks at the dark, like it belongs to her. Elira learned early that loneliness could become a companion if one stopped resisting it. She roamed the edges of the forest where the trees grew twisted and ancient, where even hunters dared not linger. It was there she felt something like peace. Or perhaps recognition. The castle beyond the trees. Every village has a boundary, even if it is unspoken. For Durenhold, it was the clearing where the forest thickened into shadow, and beyond that, rising like a jagged tooth against the sky, stood the ruined castle. No one went there, not since the stories. A lord who never aged, a shadow that moved without a body, eyes that watched from the dark, a name whispered only in prayer or fear. Dracula. Elira had heard the stories all her life, but unlike the others, she did not tremble. She wondered. The night of crossing. It was on a night drenched in silver moonlight that Elira crossed the boundary. She told no one. No one would have listened. Her steps were steady, though her heart beat faster the deeper she went. The forest changed as she moved, quieter, older, as though time itself slowed in deference to something unseen. When the castle finally loomed before her, it was not the ruin she expected. It stood whole, not restored, but untouched by decay. Its stone gleamed faintly under the moon, its windows dark like watchful eyes. Elira did not turn back. She pushed open the great door. The lord of the castle. Inside, silence reigned. Not emptiness, no. There was presence here. Thick, watchful, coiled in the air like a held breath. Elira. Her name echoed softly. She froze. You came. The voice was smooth, low, threaded with something ancient and dangerous. She turned. He stood at the far end of the hall as though he had always been there. Tall, pale, cloaked in darkness that seemed to cling to him rather than fall away. His eyes, deep crimson, held her with a quiet intensity that made her pulse quicken. You know me? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. A faint smile touched his lips. I have known you since you first walked into the forest alone. Elira should have been afraid. Instead, she stepped closer. And you? She asked. Are you what they say? His gaze flickered, amused. That depends, he said softly. What do they say? The unafraid. Monster, she said plainly. The word hung between them. For a moment, something dark moved behind his eyes. Not anger, not quite. Something older. And yet, he murmured, stepping closer, you came to me willingly. Elira tilted her chin. They say I am cursed too. Silence. Then, a quiet, almost reverent laugh. Yes, he said. I can see why. He circled her slowly, his presence brushing against her senses like a cold flame. She felt it, not just fear, but something sharper, stranger. Awareness. You are not afraid, he observed. I should be, she admitted, but I'm not. Why? She met his gaze. Because you haven't asked me to be. For a heartbeat, something shifted in him. The pull between them. Days, or perhaps nights, blurred. Time did not behave normally in the castle. Elira returned again and again. At first out of curiosity, then out of something she refused to name. Dracula, he had allowed her to call him that, though his true name remained unspoken, was unlike anything she had imagined. He was not cruel. Not gentle either. He was controlled. Every movement precise, every word measured, as though restraint defined him more than power. But sometimes, just sometimes, she saw it slip. In the way his gaze lingered a fraction too long, in the way his voice deepened when she stepped too close, in the way silence between them grew charged, heavy. You should not come so often, he said one night. And yet, she replied, you never stop me. A pause. No, he admitted. The truth of hunger. The storm came without warning. Thunder split the sky, rain lashing against the castle windows. Elira had been caught in it, soaked through, breathless as she stumbled inside. He was there instantly. Too fast, his hand caught her wrist, cold, unyielding. You shouldn't be here tonight. His voice was different. Rougher. Why? She asked, though her pulse had begun to race. He stepped back abruptly, as though distance was the only thing holding something at bay. Because, he said, his voice strained, there are parts of me you do not understand. Lightning flashed. For a moment his eyes burned brighter, something raw and dangerous surfacing. Elira didn't step away. Instead, she stepped closer. Then show me. The words fell between them like a challenge or an invitation. The edge of control. He was in front of her in an instant. Do you have any idea, he said softly, what you are asking? His voice had dropped to something almost intimate, dangerous. She could feel it now, the pull, the gravity of him. It wrapped around her, tightening with every breath. Do you? She countered, her voice barely above a whisper. His hand rose, hovering near her face, but not touching. Your heart is racing, he murmured. Yours isn't beating at all, she replied. Something like a smile flickered across his lips. Exactly. The space between them vanished. Not a touch, not yet, but close enough that she could feel the chill of him, the faint whisper of something ancient and intoxicating. You tempt fate, he said. Maybe, she whispered. Or maybe I trust you. That did it. Something broke. The first touch. His hand closed around hers. Cold. Unmistakably so, but not unpleasant. Elira didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers tightened slightly, grounding the moment, anchoring it. He stilled. You don't understand, he said again, though softer now. Then help me, she replied. Silence stretched. Then, slowly, carefully, he lifted her hand. His lips brushed against her knuckles. It wasn't hunger. Not yet. It was something far more dangerous, restraint unraveling. The choice. You can leave, he said quietly. Now, before this becomes something neither of us can undo. Elira looked at him. Really looked. At the centuries behind his eyes. At the loneliness woven into his stillness. At the battle he fought within himself, not to harm her. And she understood something the village never had. He wasn't feared because he was cruel. He was feared because he was powerful enough to choose not to be. She stepped closer. "I'm not leaving." The night that changed everything. What followed was not destruction, not the horror the stories promised. It was something quieter, more dangerous, a connection forged in the space between fear and desire, between control and surrender. He never lost himself, not completely, and she never became what the village feared. But something changed that night, in both of them, the girl and the darkness. By the time the village realized Elira no longer walked among them, it was too late. Some said she had been taken. Others said she had gone willingly. A few, very few, wondered if perhaps she had simply found a place where she was no longer feared. Deep in the forest, in a castle untouched by time, a girl once hated by all stood beside a lord, feared by all. Not as victim, not as prey, but as something far rarer, his equal. And in the quiet hours before dawn, when the world held its breath, he would look at her, not with hunger, not with dominance, but with something far more unsettling, something almost human, love.